Okay, so in today's video I'm gonna show you how to edit a VRM model in Unity. There's many aspects of the VRM model that you can change in Unity, and we'll be going through this process step by step. Now in this video we will discuss only VRM 0 models. If you want to edit VRM 1 models, you can click on this video. The process is a little bit different. So let's begin from the basics. Now, in order to edit Unity, we will need to download Unity. So the easiest way to do this is to download Unity Hub. Unity Hub is a standalone application that will allow us to install all sorts of versions of Unity. So we'll download Unity Hub and install it. Once it's done, you will need to register, make an account, do the setup. Once installed, you can run it. So once we downloaded and installed Unity Hub, we'll need to install the Unity version itself. So in here you'll need to register and you'll need to make an account, and then you go into installs, and then once you go into installs, you go into install editor, and here you will need to select a version of Unity. Now, the one that I'll be installing is Unity 2022.3.6 F1, so it might be available for you here in the official releases. If it's not, you can go into Archive and then download Archive. Depending on when you watch it, it might be out of support, so we go in 2022, and then we find 0.3.6 F1. Now, it's not here. You can see that the latest one was a 0.59. So it should be somewhere over here. Now I already have it installed and it's here. So this is the version that we'll use. Now we will make a new project. So we go into projects, we click on new project. We specify that our Unity version is 2022.3.6 F1. Then we press the 3D and we title our project something like VRM 0 models. And then we can create the project. It will create it, and then we simply wait for it to load. And here we are loaded in Unity. Now your Unity setup will probably not look like this. This is just how I have it set up, but let's go through the basic navigation. So there are a few windows that we'll need. The first one is hierarchy, the second one is the project window, then we also need the inspector, and we also need the scene and the game window. In case you don't have any of these windows, you can always just click these three dots, add tab, whichever one you want, and then you can drag them around however you want. And you can also just click off them if you want to remove them. So now we are in Unity, and a very good thing to do the first time you launch your Unity project is to just run it. And as you can see, there are issues, we can't run it. Okay, we just check this for the sake of consistency. So we can go into console and we see an error here with some sort of package. So one potential solution is to just close Unity and then open it up again. And once we open it up, we try to run it again, and it's gonna load. And as you can see, it works fine. So sometimes it might not work the first time around, so just make sure you can run it. Make sure you can run it fine before doing other steps. Right, that means we installed it correctly and it works perfectly fine now. So now let's go through some basic navigation. So in the scene menu, make sure you're in the scene menu, and in the scene menu you move around with the right mouse click. You can zoom in and out with scroll wheel. You can click on objects with left click. You can also move them around. Here are the options for moving around. I just recommend having this always set up. And you can move objects around. For example, here we're moving the sun around. And you can also zoom in on objects by pressing the F key. And you can zoom in with the scroll wheel, you move in with the right mouse button, and it's as simple as that. So in Unity, here we have the main window. So in the hierarchy, we have all our things that are in the scene. In the project folder, we have all our folders, and on the right side in the inspector windows, we have all the settings for our selected object. But what we don't have is support for VRMs yet. So to enable support for VRMs, what we need to do is to download a Unity package called UniVRM. This package is available on GitHub and all the links will be in the description below. So we go into the releases tab and we can see that we have this release which came out just last week. And in here it says this UniVRM supports Unity 2022.3 or later. And that's exactly why we had this version. So I do all my work with this version, which is 0.3.6f1, and this is why I recommend you download it, and we will be using this release for this video. So we want to download the VRM0, not the VRM1, and make sure not to download both of them. You will need to have different projects for each of them because there are different standards, and it will create conflicts. So once you download it, you will see the Unity package in the download, so we just click on it to open it. It will take a second to load, and we can see that it's already extracting in Unity. And we have this menu. It says all of these files which will be extracted, and we just click the import button. And here we go. After extraction, it's gonna open up the window. Recommended project settings for UniVRM. Color space, gamma, recommended use linear. We'll say okay, accept all. And once that's done, it says thank you, close window. Okay, we can close this window. And now what we can see is that we have two new folders. One is called UniGLTF and the other one is called VRM. And we also have these two buttons with UniGLTF and VRM. And if you go to them, we can see all these menus and we know that we did the job correctly. So now Unity is all set up, and now what we can do is we can edit our models. So first we need to acquire our models, and for the sake of this video we will use already made models and we will modify them accordingly. So here I found this model on VroidHub and I wanna modify it. So I'll scroll down to the bottom and I'll download it, and it will download the VRM model. Once we have this model downloaded, what we want to do is we want to go back into Unity and we want to create a new folder. We'll rename it to something butterfly model. Why not? Open it up, and in here we will simply drag in the VRM file. And what it's gonna do, it's gonna extract everything from the VRM file into Unity, so we don't really need to do anything. I recommend making a folder per each file that you edit, and you can use the same project as well. You don't need to make the new project every time. What you need to do though is you need to create a new scene every time. This will help you keep things separated. So we'll make a new scene and we'll name it butterfly, and we can save the sample scene, we can not save it, doesn't matter. And we can drag in this model in here, and we press F to zoom in on it, and we can edit it accordingly. So now we have the model imported into Unity, and we can edit it and change some stuff around. So the way we do that is you can see it generated all these folders for us, and there is data in all of these folders. It's nicely separated. So let's go through this one by one and edit things accordingly. So first of all, we're gonna go into materials, which is probably the most important folder for avatars. So these are the materials that make up the model, and what you have will depend on how the model was made. That is something that we will not go over in this video, editing the model on a fundamental level, but there is still a lot of things that we can do within Unity itself. So for example, let's edit the hair, probably the most common thing that's done. So we can select the hair material and we see all the options that we have. So let's go through these options one by one. So rendering type, here we have 4 options and we'll return to them a little bit later. Next option we have is cull mode, and what cull mode does is it basically sets which part of the texture you want to render. So for example here we see with the wings that if you view them from one side, it looks fine, but if you view them from the other, it looks transparent. So we can go actually into the wing material, and in here we can see the cull mode. As you can see, it's set to back. If we set it to front, we will see the opposite way, that we can see it from one side but we can't see it from the other. And if we turn it off, then we can see from both sides. So in general, I recommend setting culling off in all textures except the body textures. So we'll do exactly that. Now, when we go inside the body, you will see that everything is rendered except the body itself. The theory here is that it's better for immersion when the body is see-through. We could also make it not see-through by setting the cull mode to off. That way we could see inside the body, but in general it's better to set it to back. But it might depend on your use case. So now let's get back to the hair. So what we have here is the texture. We have the lit color and we have the shade color. In general, I'd recommend setting the same texture to both of them and then adjusting the color here. So this is just the shading. So this is the normal color. The normal color would be this, and this is the shadow color. So you can play around with them. In general, I recommend making the shadow color slightly darker than the normal texture color. And what I wanna do is actually I wanna change the color. So there are two ways to do this. I could edit the texture directly, or I could change this color. So for this particular case, I'm gonna edit this one, and I wanna change it to red. So we'll pick red, and we'll pick the shade color as red as well, but we'll make it slightly darker. And there we go. We have highlights with brighter red, and we have shadows with darker red. Okay, next we can go through other settings. So here we have lighting settings. So here we have shading and shading tuning. We can change it to a realistic or toony shading. And as you can see, we can see where the highlights meet. The more you set it to toony, the more of sort of cell shading you get. In general, the default value is fine, so keeping it as default is fine. Normal maps are something that's used for extra detail. You can apply it, for example, here. The value is very high here. Generally, you're keeping it fun, and as you can see, we can have extra detail with normal maps, though in this case, I don't think this particular normal map fits our use cases. And if you're using normal maps, it's something a bit more advanced, something you don't need to worry about. The advanced settings here, honestly, these don't do much. I don't recommend changing them. Just ignore these, they're fine. They don't hurt anybody. Next is emission. And with emission we can make highlights, and we can also add a texture. So the texture will be a mask, so it will be, if you wanted to, you could make your own mask from the base texture color, but in this case we're just gonna use the base texture itself, and we will set it to something like bluish. I don't like how that looks. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use this to make a mask, and I will be right back. And the way we do this is we go into textures, and we can see our texture over here. So we right click on it, we click show in Explorer, and it will open up in Windows, We right click on it, we edit it in our favorite editing software. What we could also do is we could add some color, for example like this, and we can save it. And we can go back into Unity, and as you can see, we painted on it, and now it appears on our model. So this is one way to edit textures. If you want specific colors, if you don't want to change just everything, if you want to change just a specific bit. What we could also do here is we could draw something like a smiley face, and we could save it. we will see a smiley face, though as you can see it doesn't appear the way we wanted it to. So that's a little bit of a weird quirk. Generally speaking, you're not supposed to edit textures within a texture editing application. You should edit them in 3D software, but it's a cheap and easy way to add stuff and add detail without actually needing to go into 3D software, and it's a nifty little hack. So one more edit, we'll just paint over these parts, and as we can see, they appear in the model. And in this particular case, we don't see them appearing on our model because this model is too red, it's too saturated. So once again, we can go into our materials, we can go into the hair shader, and we can just reduce the red, make it white, and now we can see the edit that we actually made. But if we set it to red, we will not be able to see it. So it's a little bit of play. So I recommend you playing around a little bit. So the next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use this and I'm gonna use it to generate a mask. Okay, so I've done a little bit of editing in the 3D software and I generated this image. Now, the idea here is that the white parts will be the emission and they will be different, and the black parts will be the same and they will not change. So I'm gonna save this as a separate file. Call it here emission mask. Save it. And we go back into Unity. It's gonna load for a second. In here, what we can also do is we can lock this inspector window so that when we change, we don't click off of it. That's a convenient feature to have. And you can also have multiple inspector windows and you can lock multiple stuff if that's convenient for you. So we'll go back into textures and we have this mask that we just made. So we're gonna drag it into the emissions and we're gonna change the emissions to something like blue. And as you can see, we now have blue highlights in the places where we made the mask. Matcap is an interesting property. So matcap files look something like this, like these balls, and we can select them. And what they do is they add this interesting effect. So let's pick a different file. You can use any image. You can use this image if you want. And as you can see, when we move around, we get this interesting effect. Oh, this camera. It's in the way. As you can see, when we move around, we get this sort of like this holographic, not quite the holographic effect. It's good for certain things like glass, if you want to imitate glass, if you want to imitate metal, can also be good, and it can be good if you want to imitate other stuff as well. In this particular case, we're just not gonna use it, we're gonna select none, because we don't need it. Next is the rim lighting, and for the rim lighting is exactly how it sounds. It adds lighting to the rim. You can see the preview over here, and we can also adjust it a little bit. So lighting mix, it's a property that mixes with the ambient light. So I recommend setting it to 0, leaving it as 0. This is basically like the maximum, what the maximum is, and this is like the minimum value. So you can adjust these to what you want. Personally, I think I'll set it to red, and we'll do a little sort of red highlight type of thing. All right, I quite like that. Next is the outline, and here we can do select world coordinates and screen coordinates. Screen coordinates I generally don't recommend doing. I recommend doing world coordinates always. That way it's always specific and the way that you want. And as you can see, it generates an outline, and we can also change its color. One reason why I don't recommend using outlines is that it will interfere with, if you want to turn stuff via toggles, it will interfere with that, but we will get to that later. So for this particular case, I will disable outlines because it's just too much. It's not necessary for, at least I don't think so. Next up is UV coordinates, and what UV coordinates does is it basically takes this texture and moves it to an x-axis or a y-axis, and you can actually move it, and as you can see, it moves, but it will never look great. You should basically only keep it at 1:1 unless you're actually like made the model yourself and you know what this does. You can also offset, which basically does the same thing. So once again, this is not something that you want to do. What you want to maybe do sometimes is to add an animation, and you can do a scrolling animation. As you can see, it looks a little bit choppy. So if you want to actually preview this scrolling animation, what you want to do is you want to hit the play button. Then you can actually preview the animation. Let me go back into scene, and you can see that it's scrolling. There are some neat stuff that you can do with this feature. You can also increase the values like this. But speaking generally, you need to work on the model yourself if you wanna actually do something with this. And you can do scroll X, scroll Y, and then you can do rotation in a circle. So you can also select here by what you want to change. Generally speaking, you should probably work with degrees, because anything else will just be too much. And here we can make it slowly rotate, but it doesn't look quite good because this texture is not designed for this. What this basically does is it's spinning this texture here, and yeah, it's not designed for spinning. So we'll set this to 0, and then you have this second menu over here, which is options, debugging options, and don't change anything here. You don't need to change anything here. This is for advanced users only. So that's all the options we have for VRM0 format. So we finished editing the hair, but I'm still not happy with the model. I wanna remove certain aspects. For example, I want this crown to be gone. So there are two ways we can remove it. We have the first and the easy option. The first way is to select the crown and find the material that it's using. In this case, we can see that it's using a material called gold. What we can do in this material is we can set the rendering time cutout, and we can increase the alpha cutoff. So as you can see, we made the crown disappear, but the necklace disappeared as well because both of these objects were using the same material. The way we can get around that is by selecting the material, pressing Ctrl D to duplicate it. Now we have a copy of it, and in the copy we actually make it opaque, we make it how it was before, and we assign this copy to the necklace material itself. And as you can see, the crown has disappeared, whereas the necklace still remains. Now this does not remove the geometry itself. Now that we added this material for the necklace, what we'll need to do is also assign it to the avatar in the metadata. So this will be done automatically upon export, but we can also do it manually so that we can work with it further. So what we do is we go back to our VRM model, we double click on our VRM model to enter edit mode, and in here in the hierarchy, what we wanna do is we wanna scroll down and we wanna find necklace. Over here, as we can see, the material that's assigned here is gold, and we want to actually assign the new material that we made, which is gold 1. And once we assign it here, we wanna go back, and then it will be applied within the model metadata itself. Now in this particular case, I don't want the necklace to be visible, I want the necklace to be transparent. So I'll have to undo all the changes that I just made. But first, let's look at this gold material that we made transparent. We made this material transparent by increasing the alpha cutoff value. The problem is that this is respected within Unity, but a lot of 3D applications may not respect this alpha cutoff value properly, and it may still render the material. What we want to do is, if we're just making the material blank and transparent, we want to just unassign everything. Unassign everything in the color, set it to black, change the alpha value to 0, set the color to black, change the alpha to 0, the same here for emission, for madcap, deselect everything, because if there is no data, then it will be guaranteed to be transparent in all models. And I'll assign the same material to the necklace because I want it also to be transparent. And we will go back to the model. We will go back to edit mode by double clicking on the model. We will go into necklace. And in here in the necklace where I assigned the new gold, I'm just gonna revert it back into the old one. And then we click out of it to confirm changes. Now, another way to do this is to simply delete these objects themselves. So the way we wanna do this is not delete them here, but rather we wanna go into the edit mode of the model by double clicking it, and we want to delete these objects from here. That way they will be deleted permanently. So here we can find the necklace, and here we can also find the head ring. So we will delete this, and we will delete this as well. After we've done this, we have deleted these objects, yes, but we have not deleted them from the metadata, and that will cause problems. So we need to fix the metadata as well. And we do that by scrolling up and pressing on the object itself, and then we'll scroll down. And as you can see here, we have in the VRM first person, we have validation errors. This is because we just deleted two materials which the model expected. So if you press reset VRM first person renderers, you can see it does not fix the problem. So we need to fix this problem manually. And the way we do this is simply by picking these values and then just shifting them up. So this will be sandals, this will be tail, this will be underwear, and this will be wings. And now these two we will simply remove them because they're duplicates. And there you go. The problem arises because you may not have a separate object in here. Generally speaking, it really depends on how the model is made. So both of these methods could be useful in your endeavors. Deleting the geometry itself and the object itself is a better option, but it may not always be available for you. Changing the materials is generally the easier option, even though it may have seemed a bit complex. So now we can just return back, and we can see that it is deleted. Okay, so now that we edited the hair, there might also be other things that we want to edit. For example, we already edited the wings, but I want the wings to have two highlights just like the hair. So what we can do is we can select the wings, we can go into the wings material, we can lock this menu so that it doesn't go away, and in here we also have the emission value. Now, as you can see, it's already filled, but I wanna make a new mask, and I will be using this as a pattern. And what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna do another mask, and the way I do this is I just okay, I'm happy with that. I'm gonna save it as wings emission mask. Save it. And I'm gonna apply the emission to it, and I'm also gonna make it blue. Make sure it's the same blue. Alright, and here I also wanna add rim lighting. So if you're working on multiple textures, what you can do is you can select the hair, and we'll select the hair texture, and we'll just lock it. And that way you can copy properties. So we can take this dipper tool, we can select the same red, we can select these values, we can copy paste them, and there we go, it's the same. But now that I look at it from up close, I don't think I want to have it the same, so I'll tweak them slightly. Well, it's a bit different. I can't really have it like an outline, so in this case I might really need to use the outline. But so the problem here arises just from how the model is made. You can't always get how you want if you're editing it in Unity, but we can see that the red line outline is sometimes visible depending from what angle you look. These are the minuses of working in Unity. If you wanted to edit them, you need to edit the model itself, but we're not gonna do that. And let's also edit the legs, the boots, the shoes. So we'll unlock this and we'll lock this one, and in here all I wanna do is just edit the rim lighting. Make it glow slightly. Alright, that's okay, next up, I wanna make this dress slightly transparent, so that is slightly see-through. So the way I'll do this is I'll apply a transparent value. Now the difference here is that a cutout value, as you increase the threshold, you will notice that it parts of it disappear and parts of it do not. Now you have two different transparent options. So you have transparent and transparent with Z-Write. In general, I always recommend using transparent with Z-Write. This you can always ignore this warning. It doesn't mean anything. It's always supported. It never causes problems with rendering. So as you can see, it's slightly transparent. The problem arises with transparent with Z-Write when you have transparency on top of transparency. In that case, you wanna use the transparent feature and not transparent with Z-Write. But in this case, we're just making the clothing transparent. So we'll do this, and in the texture here, we will also assign the proper cloth texture. Now, in our case, our clothing is already slightly transparent, but it's a lot more transparent than I want it to be. We're gonna go back to the textures, and we're gonna find the clothes texture, which is this, and we're gonna once again edit it in our image editing software. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna simply reduce the opacity. So let's duplicate it, let's make it less transparent, and as you can see, it's less transparent. Now, alternatively, what I could also do is I could make this texture more transparent, more see-through, so we could save it. So we could save it, and we can see that it's a lot more transparent. So this is the step where you just need to play with the values and see what you like. And something like this is more what I had in mind, where it's just barely see-through. And in here, what I'm also gonna do is I'm just gonna add a little bit of rim lighting. Okay, not that much. And what's important is that you need to go out of play mode, but when you're editing materials, it doesn't really matter whether you're in play mode or out of play mode. But where it will matter is when you're editing spring bones. So now we move on to the next step, editing spring bones. And we can see that this model here in particular already has some spring bones added. So we can go into play mode, and in play mode all spring bones will activate. So we can click on the model in the hierarchy and we can move it around, and we can see that it moves around. Now there are these gizmos, they're in the way, they just mark the dynamic bone positions, and I don't think you can actually disable them. So in general, in the models, in VRM0 models, you will always have the secondary menu, which will contain all spring bones. And in here we can see that we have this, which is the script for our hair dynamic bones. You can see as I move around, and in here we can also adjust some of the properties. For example, stiffness. We can use this image here for the preview. We can modify the stiffness value. We can also modify the drag value. And these two values essentially determine how dynamic bones behave. You also have a third value called gravity, and you can adjust it how reactive the dynamic bones are to gravity. So you can also change the direction of which is gravity. So for example here, the dynamics bones, we change the gravity to up, and we change the value to 1, so now the dynamic bones follow gravity. So this is also a value that you can edit, but in general you don't really need to edit it. You can also select this, for example X, now it goes into the side. into the side and then up. You can select this, now it goes only to the side. So yes, there's a lot of way you can play around with this value, but in general you're only gonna be playing with drag force and stiffness force. Now what's important is that these values will not be saved, unlike the materials that we worked on. When we exit play mode, you will notice that values get reset, and the model position gets reset, and anything that we interacted with in play mode gets reset. So how do we find the values that we want? So what we do, there's a very simple option. We can adjust the values to however we want. For example, I want them to be like this. And then we can click here on the three dots. We can click copy component. We can unpress play. And then we can say click three dots again and paste component values. And there you go. It got set up how we want. Now we also have some other values. So center, this doesn't do anything. You can ignore this. Root bones. Here are all the bones that will be affected. So if you go into the hierarchy menu, you can see the bones here, and you can see that if we have this bone assigned, which is this part of the hair, as you can see when I move it around, all the children of this bone will also be assigned. So this bone, and then this bone, and then this bone as well, and then this bone also gets assigned. So all of these bones gets assigned when this one bone is assigned. This is something that will be different when we move on to VRM formats, so it's important to note here. Next on we have a thing called collisions. So the way that bones interact is we have these three orbs, let's say, and the hit radius changes the size of these orbs. What they collide with is here defined here in the collider groups, and we can see that we have two elements, which is the right hand and the left hand. So we can see here the colliders are marked in purple and they're assigned on our hands. If we go into play mode, we can experiment with that. So here in the hierarchy, I will navigate to the right shoulder, right upper arm, right hand, and here we can edit the hand. And as you can see, moving that moves the hand. And in here, if you go here, we have the right hand collider, which is assigned the hand. So we can actually view how these interfere. You can see as these balls interact with the other balls, you have dynamics. And if you want to, you can change the hit radius here to be larger. So now that these balls are really big compared to these balls, and they interact much more. Or alternatively, you can change the parameters in the collider. You can open up here, and you can make these balls bigger as well. So we'll set up some custom colliders as well, so don't worry, we'll go through this a bit more. And once again, if I unclick play, it will all return back to how it was, back to normal. Okay, so there's one thing that I wanna do. As you can see, when we load up this model, and when we move it around, the hair moves, but nothing else moves. And I want the tail to move, and I want the wings also to move. So how do we do that? Well, first we exit from play mode. Then we go into our secondary, which is here. We lock it so that we can work on it and it doesn't go away. And then we wanna add in another component, which is the VRM Springbone component. Now, if for whatever reason you do not have the secondary component, it doesn't matter. You can add this component anywhere in the file. You can right click, you can create empty, and you can call it secondary if you want. Though in this case we already have one, so it's gonna. Oh, I guess we can have another one. Okay, no problem. So yeah, you can name one, you can add another one. You can add this component directly on a bone somewhere. You can add it directly on a mesh. It doesn't really matter, because at the end of the day, when we export it, it will all get collapsed into this secondary menu. And once we have that, we can write a comment for what's it used for. So we're gonna make wings dynamic. So we'll just type wings here. You can also select the color. The color here will represent the color on the model, for example, green. And here in the root bones, we need to select 2. In our case, it will be 2. So here we go into wing base, and we need to find the bones that are responsible for the wings. So it will be these. So for example, this wing base here, we can see we can move it around. It will move the whole wings. Now this bone will move the entirety of the left wing. We don't really want to do that. We wanna select a bone a little bit further away. So for example, this, I don't think this is still quite far enough. So let's go here. Okay, so this moves the top wing and this moves the bottom wing. Okay. What if we go a little bit further? Okay, this moves this part of the top wing, and this moves this part of the top. Okay, we'll select these. So we'll select this, and we'll also select this. And for the other wing, I believe, yeah, it will also be the same. So what bones you have and how they appear will depend on how the model is made. And once again, we will not go through this because it's a lot of extra steps. So if you have it, that's great. If you don't have it, well, then you're screwed. Sorry for your bad luck. But in this case, we have these bones, and we just created a component and we just assigned root bones. So what we can do is we can just hit play, and we can see that it's already applied, and it's already and we already have the dynamics assigned. So as you can see, when we move around, the wings already flap around, and we can see that the color of the gizmo is also green because we assigned it the green color. So I want to adjust the flapping a little bit. So I'll do exactly that. So we'll just increase the drag force a little bit, decrease the stiffness. Yeah, this is okay. We need to increase the stiffness a little bit. Yeah, that's not bad. I quite like that. So once again, we copy the component, and then we paste component values. So then we have everything that we want. Now, the way we can also check to see how the dynamic bones behave and how the model itself moves is to load an animation. So in this case, you will need an animation file. And in general, these animation files look like this. They have the extension .anim. And you can see here, if we load it up, it plays an animation. So we're gonna use this animation, and we're gonna assign it to our model. Now, all VRM models are humanoid, so it's relatively easy to do. So we'll create a brand new animation controller. We'll just name it the loop animation, just so it loops. We'll double click on it. It will open an animator window. If you don't have it, you might need to add it. And in here, we'll just drag in the animation, and there we go. Now, what we also need to do is to assign it to the model itself. So we click on the model in the hierarchy, we scroll down, and we will see here animator. We'll just drag this here, or you can also click this button, select this animation, and then when we hit play, you will notice that this model will start dancing. As you can see now, this model is dancing, and this is a slightly easier way to adjust dynamic bones, and to also see for clipping issues and for just movement in general, to see if there are any issues. So from here I can see that the hair is a little bit stiffer than I'd like, so I'm gonna adjust the hair slightly. It's also very important that you, once you finish your edits, you should remove the animation from here. You should click on it and then select none. That way it will be fine. Just make sure to do it when you have play mode disabled, because if you don't, you can see it reappears. So all edits, well, not all edits, but most edits done in play mode will not be saved. Materials will always be saved, so you can edit materials in play mode if you want. That's something a bit better. Okay, I think that's fine for me. So once again, I'm gonna copy this component, I'm gonna unpress play, and I am gonna paste component values. Alright, next up, I also wanna make the tail dynamic as well, because at the moment the tail doesn't move. So I will do the same thing. We will add component. Actually, what we can do is we can do another thing. We can click this, copy component, we can paste component as new, and then we'll have another component, and it will have all the same values. So here we'll rename it to tail. We will set the color to blue, and we over here we'll change the amount of root bones to 1, and we'll go find the tail. So in this particular case, it will probably be hips. Yes, it's named as hips. So here we can also see which bone affects what. So this, I think this is, we need a bit of a later bone. This is still not quite right. Getting closer, but this is still a bit too far. Alright. Maybe this is okay. Let's see from here. So yes, it will probably be this. It will probably be this bone 004. Okay, once again we return to secondary, and I forgot to lock it. So we will assign the bone 004. And then you can see all of these will be dynamic. So once again we hit play, and we can see that the tail is now flapping around. Now there is some clipping here, but that just comes from the model itself. Actually, I could probably assign a further bone. Let's see if I assign a further bone. That might fix that problem. Let's see if I assign 006. Slightly better, but the clipping comes from the model itself, and it's not really something that we can change at this point. There are some hacky ways to do that. Actually, you know what? Let's try it. So, this is a tutorial video. I might as well give you a tutorial. So, we'll adjust the position of the tail, because as you can see, it is clipping through the skirt. Okay, so what we'll do is we will go to this file, which is our file, which is we generated, and we'll double click it, and we will appear in edit mode. So here we'll select the bone that was causing us problems. I believe it was this one, and we can adjust its position. We can let's adjust the tail so it stops clipping. So we'll move it slightly. And once we're here, we'll just click the back arrow and we'll have it saved. Now, as you can see, the tail has been changed and it's no longer clipping. So that should fix our problem. Let's hit play and let's see how it looks like. Yes, well, that's a little bit better. There's still a little bit of clipping, so we can change that as well. So once again, we'll unhit play, we'll double click on the model, and we'll just edit it a little bit more. Just slightly more. Maybe bone number 6. Yeah, and as you can see, it's slightly clipping, but I think that's acceptable. I'm not gonna mess around with it. Now it is working fine, but if we move it around, we can see that it will go through the legs and it will go through the body. Actually, it's not really going through the body, but it is going through the legs. So I wanna set up colliders for that. I wanna make sure that it can go through the legs. So we'll do exactly that. Next thing we'll do is we'll set up a collider. We'll scroll down and we'll try to find the leg bones. So the legs will be in here, left upper leg, right upper leg. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna select left upper leg first, and we're just gonna right click, we're gonna do create empty, and we're gonna call it left upper leg collider. Simple as that. We can unfreeze this. We can add component, and here we will add a component called VRM Spring-Bone Collider Group. As you can see, when I add the component, it will appear like this. We can adjust its position, and we can also here adjust its size. And what we wanna do is we just want it to match basically the outline of the leg and the position of the leg. So something like this. We'll wanna add a couple more. So here you can have colliders. We'll add 2, so element number 2, and we can adjust the element's position. Okay, that doesn't quite work, so we'll have to do it like this. Alright. And let's do another one. Why not? .01. There we go. Yeah, I'm fine with that. And what we can also do, we can do the same thing for the other leg, but we don't really need to remake this. We can just copy paste this. So we'll select the left leg collider, and then we'll copy this, Control C, click on this lower leg, Control V, and we can see that it looks the same. Now we'll rename this component to right, and in here in the position we'll also reset it. So now we have it here, but we will need to move it down slightly. Okay, we'll just adjust this position manually. Yeah, you don't really need to be very precise about it. Doesn't matter that much. Okay, now we have these 2 colliders set up, and we will need to go into the secondary, and we will actually need to assign them to the collider groups here so that they work. So we'll select 2, but actually we can select 4. We can actually add the hand colliders as well. So we have hand collider, left hand, left leg, right hand, right leg. Alright, we'll just assign everything. And we can also assign these colliders to the wings as well. Hand collider. That way we can interact with our wings with our hands, if we so choose. And we can hit play, and we can select. We can see how it works. And now, if we move this model forwards and backwards, we can see that the tail does in fact not clip through the legs. I'm not sure if it was very visible before, but now it's really visible. And in fact here what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pause the animation. So let's delete this component. Okay, now the animation is paused, and as you can see, it might be a bit difficult to see, but the tail doesn't clip through the legs anymore. It did previously. And we can do another test. We can take the hand, we can move it about, and we can see that it in fact interacts with both the wings and tail. So you can see actually I probably should make the wing bones bigger, because now they're rather small. So let's go into the secondary here. Wings, you can see that they're rather small. These balls are rather small. We will increase the size of these wings. Yeah, make them big like this. When we go back to the hand, you can see that when we push the hand, these wings interact. And it's the same for the tail. If we go to the tail, when we move this hand, it interacts with the tail as well. Alright, now the only thing that's left is to save the settings. So once again we'll select secondary, we'll copy component of wings, and we'll paste component values for wings. And there we go. Now we have it assigned. Okay, now I wanna make additions to this model. So one thing I wanna do is I wanna add an object to the hand. And in particular, I wanna add a scythe. I feel like this model could go with a scythe. So we're gonna do exactly that. What we'll do is we'll just drag it into our menu here, and we can see the scythe object here. What I'm gonna do for this is I'm gonna extract materials. We can select the same folder. We have the scythe material, and we can also select a texture, extract the texture, and we hit save. You can see the scythe is not textured. If I drag it into the hierarchy somewhere, it just appears white, so it doesn't have its materials. So what we can do is we have the material here. You can also create one by going to create and going to material. But we'll use this one here, and you can see that shader, where it says shader, it says standard. Standard shaders, I believe, are not supported by VRM. Maybe they are, I'm not sure. But we wanna go to VRM and we're gonna go to mtune. And you can see here all our familiar shader values. So here we'll assign the texture to the texture, and you can see immediately the scythe gets colored. Here, the color we selected as white, and the shade color will do like slightly gray. Next up, I wanna also change the rim lighting, make it like reddish, like red, a little bit of red. Increase this, maybe increase the, maybe not. Make it ever so slightly red. Emission, can we use like some sort of emission? Let's see, if we use some random emission map, that look good. I think so. What if we use like? What if we use like this? Oh, that looks like that scratches. And so you can use textures that don't really belong. You don't need to make custom ones. You can sometimes get away with making using the same ones or using other ones. Yeah, let's keep the blue theme. Let's add some blue to the scythe. Alright, that looks nice. Okay, so now that we have the scythe all set up, we don't want this in the hierarchy to be in the hierarchy. We just put it in the hierarchy so that it would be easier for us to set it up. But we need to include this scythe in the model's metadata. Now, we could just parent it to the model by just dropping and dragging it. But the problem is that this information will not be included in the model's metadata. Now, it will be included if we export the model, which will fix all the errors and fix the metadata issues. But we can also do this manually, and in fact, we should do this manually. So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna delete the site from the hierarchy and make sure it doesn't it's not there anymore. And in fact, what we'll do is we'll go into the edit mode of the model by just double clicking on the model. Now in here we actually wanna add the scythe. So we wanna add it to the right hand. So it will be this hand, because the right hand is the model's hand. So if we look in the way that the model is facing, it will be their right hand. So we wanna add it to the right hand, and we wanna add it to the right hand bone. So we just find it, and it's right here, right hand. So if we just drag the scythe onto the right hand, and as you can see, it positions it, but it's not positioned correctly. So we'll just drag it and rotate it a bit and position it the way we want to position it. And yeah, that looks about right. You can see that it's now in the hand. The model's holding it. And we can also test it out to make sure it works by just clicking the right hand over here and moving it around. You can see that it's parented to the hand. When the hand moves, the scythe moves as well. So that's fine. But we also need to set up the metadata as well. To do that, we need to ensure that the scythe is using a skinned mesh renderer. So we find the scythe that we just added in the hierarchy, and we can see that we can expand it. And the scythe is over here. You can see when we select it, it goes yellow. And that's exactly what we want to select. We can also just click on it. And we need to click on it a few times so then it becomes yellow. So that's what we want. And in here you see the mesh renderer. Now we don't want to have a mesh renderer, we want to have a skinned mesh renderer. This is a big difference. In here, we add component, and we can type skinned mesh renderer, and we add it. And as you can see, it deleted our old mesh renderer and it replaced it with the skinned mesh renderer. There's an error, but you can just ignore it. It doesn't matter anything. It doesn't mean anything. And when we've done that, we also want to assign this scythe to the model's metadata. So we do that by going up and pressing the model, and we go to the VRM first person script. And in here we see renderers. So in here we wanna click plus, and you will see the scythe. So in this case, the scythe had a weird name, which is like 80 or something. So we select this. And by doing this, it will now be in the model's metadata and we will see it everywhere. So now we go out of edit mode, and this is how we add the scythe. As you can see, when we leave the edit mode, the model already has the scythe in its hand and it's all set up. Now, when it comes to complex clothing like dresses or something, you can't really do that this simply. But when it comes to simple clothing like accessories or a weapon, you can do this in Unity quite easily. You just need to parent it to one bone. For example, in this case, the hand. But when it comes to complex clothing, like dresses, they have multi-bone transforms, so they need to be parented to the body, to the chest, to the legs, maybe to the arms. It's complex parenting, and you can do that in Unity, not in any easy way. There are some hacky third-party solutions, but I'm not gonna show them to you because they don't work very well. We could add a crown if you wanted to, but I already removed one. We could add like a bracelet, we could add a ring, we could add a necklace, maybe some shoes, but like small shoes. We could add like a multi-bone transform, we could add like wings if they have their own armature and stuff included, if they have their own bones included. Honestly, just play around, just see what you can have. Most of the time, simple objects will be added. Hats, probably. Okay, so we can hit play and we can test our model in motion. I believe we made all the necessary edits that we want. You can see our model is moving around. Scythe is parented correctly. There are dynamics. The effects were changed and everything else was changed. So now the one thing that I wanna do is I wanna add expressions, and I also wanna add toggles, because all these things that we have, we can also toggle them. So the way we do that is quite simple. So in here we have, the easiest way is to go to the file here, which is called blend shapes, and here we will need to find this file which says blend shape. So as you can see, all the other files are the blend shapes that I used. Let's go through this process here. So we have this file, we will lock it so that it stays. And here we can see all the different facial animations that we have. So if you click on A, you can see that they're already assigned. So this is A animation. You can see mouth open, I, U, E, O, and then you have stuff like blink. Then you have joy, then you have angry, anger, sorrow, fun, look up, look down, look left, look right. A lot of times these are unassigned because eye tracking is done differently, not through these blend shapes, but sometimes these can change the shape of the eyes or the shape of the pupils. Then you have blink left and blink right. Now, when it comes to left and right, keep in mind that this is the model's left and right. So if we look in the face that the model is shaped, the left hand is the one on the left and the right hand is the one on the right. And the same way with the eyes. So left is this one and right is this one. The naming conventions follow the same rules everywhere. Now here we can create a new clip by just pressing create blend shape clip. Then we'll name it something. So I see that we're missing one expression which is used in VRM1 models, which is surprised. Now in this case, when we create it, we can select it, and here unfortunately we don't have a lot, but these the amount of blend shapes you have will depend on the model itself. So in this case, we unfortunately don't have very many options to pick from, but your mileage may vary. This is optimized, so you only have the ones that are used within the model. So we'll just make a surprised face by just mixing a few of them. Let's do something like this. Let's call this the surprise face. So this might cause some problems if you don't have a specific slider for it, but it might not. It depends on your use cases. So next we have some options here. So this option is binary. We'll come back to this one a bit later. So you have this option here, which is also preset. A preset should be assigned to the correct ones. For example, E will be E, O will be O, and so on. These are automatically assigned for you, so you don't really need to do anything, and the rest of them should be unknown. Then in the blend shape list, you just have the same parameters that we just edited, except in here you have them all nicely in one list, and in here you have them just the ones that are being edited. Here is also the name of the mesh that's being edited. Then we have materials list, and here is where we'll make our toggles. So we'll create a new blend shape clip. We will name it remove wings. So this toggle will remove wings. So what we want to do is we want to select it, we go to the materials list, and then we click the plus icon to add another property, and we select the wings. So in this case it will be titled wings, and we select another property called color. As you can see, it disappears. So the reason for why it disappears is if we select color, we see the alpha channel. You see the alpha channel here, and we can adjust it to 0. That way, when the toggle is pressed, the wings will disappear. Now, this option is binary. It will change the way that the wings disappear. If we select this binary, it will basically mean that whenever the slider is moved any amount, the wings will go away. If we don't select it, then we have the slider to adjust the transparency accordingly. Now, another very important thing is that the material itself needs to have transparency enabled on it. So here we go into the wings material, and we can see that it's transparent with Z, right? If we set it to opaque, then it's not gonna work. But it will work in the preview, because the preview doesn't take that into account. Also, another important thing is that you need to have outline disabled. There will be slight differences if you have it on cutout or if you have it on transparent. But in general, it works with both. We made the remove wings toggle, so we're gonna select is binary because I prefer that option. Then it just gets removed when you just adjust the slider by any amount. And we also wanna make toggles for other things, for example, shoes, tail, clothes. So we're gonna do exactly that. We're gonna make a new blend shape clip, and we call it remove, for example, tail. Now let's say I didn't want this toggle, so how do I remove this? Let's say I made this accidentally. So the way you can remove this is by going into the list, finding the toggle that you want, for example this element 19, we select it, and then we just click the minus, and there we go, it's gone. You can also edit the same things here, but it's easier to edit them via the editor. So we'll create a new one, and in this case we have the remove tail here. So the asset itself is not deleted, it's only the property within the file that's deleted. So we can select the same one, yes, we'll replace it, and we have the remove tail. So once again we select is binary because I prefer it that way. We'll add the plus. Okay, now there's an error. You see current clip missing. Okay, so the error is, there shouldn't be an error. Okay, it just needed to be refreshed for a second. Okay, so once again we'll select is binary, we'll click the plus icon, and we will select the tail this time. We will select the property of color. We will make sure it's alpha, and as you can see in the preview, the tail did not disappear, it went black. That's because here in the tail it is assigned as opaque, and we need to assign it either cutout or transparent. I will choose cutout in this case. And as you can see in the preview, it does not change because the preview shows the original version of the model. If we unlock it and we relock it, does that change anything? So we go into blend shape again, we select blend shape, we lock it, and if we go into remove tail, okay, now it updates. Alright, well, that's convenient. So yes, that's how you can update it. You just click on it again. Alright, so that's how we remove the tail. Now we can do another toggle. So for example, remove press, sure, why not? We'll select this binary, add plus, add property, press, color, blank, okay. And then we can also add another property, remove choose, why not? This binary, materials, property, boots, color. And I believe, yeah, we also face the same problem where the material itself is not where the material is opaque, so we set it to cutout. Now we reload this. So once again, go into blend shape, go into here, and that's partly why I have the second folder here, so you can navigate for different fonts. It's somewhat more convenient. So here we can remove choose. Now we can see it works. We can't really adjust the feet, unfortunately. We can't adjust the position of the feet. Alas, working strictly within Unity does have some limitations, but you know, you can still do some things. So on top of that, there are also other toggles that you can change. So for example, we can do another toggle which is change hair color. In here, we can do exactly that. So we can go to materials list, we can go to properties, and we can go to hair shadow, that's probably what it's called, and we can go to color, and we could make the hair white, for example. So that way we could assign a toggle to the hair color and we can change it. So that's what it would look like. This is what it would look like. Now, you can have multiple parameters, so if you change the hair color, you also kind of want to change the shade color as well. And the thing we do with shader color, we pick the same color, but we just make it slightly darker. So yeah, if you're changing the color, you might as well change the shade color. And it will just do a simple transform between one and the two. Now, there are some other parameters that we can change, and we can go through them as well. So you have these ST parameters. Now, these ST parameters, they basically define the texture coordinates of the map, and for the sake of this video, you're never gonna be using them unless you really know what you're doing. But even in those cases, like these, from my experience, these don't always work, and generally speaking, you will never find a good opportunity to use these, so you can ignore all of these STs. You have rim color. You can change rim color if you wanted to. For example, here you can see it's now red. You can change it to blue and black and whatever else. You can also, the alpha channel doesn't do anything here. So, and then what we have is the these STs. Once again, they don't really do anything. Ignore them. Emission color, you can change that if you wanted to. The hair itself is white, so we can't really, let's change it to black so that you could actually see the emission color being changed. So here you can see the emission color being changed. Let's look at the material that we assigned. So here, as you can see, we have a mask on the emission, so only these bits will be changed. So we can't really change the emission texture itself. I mean, we kind of can, but let's not do that because it will break stuff. So we can only change these bits that we set up here. And as for the rim color, we also, if we changed it to rim color, we can only change the rim color. We cannot change the intensity of the rim color. to do that, we would need to change this value, which we cannot do with the material toggle. So then we also have these ST parameters, we can ignore them, and we have the outline color. So we're not using an outline in this case, but we could also change that as well. So let me set up an outline. Let's refresh this. Right, let's refresh this. Let's go into change hair color, and as you can see, our outline color changes when we change this parameter. So it's kind of neat. You can have parameters assigned to these, and I believe you can maybe do even a single color at a time. Maybe you can have 3 parameters, make it RGB. I don't know. I haven't experimented with this. You can experiment with this if you want. And if we don't want this, we can just select this and press the minus button to remove it. And let's delete the hair outline as well, so I don't want to have that. Okay, now we are finished with the model, and we made all the toggles that we want, and now we are ready to export it. So, how do we do that? Well, there are a few things that we need to look over. So first, we'll select the model itself, and we'll go through the properties in the model. So here you have the meta file. For the moment, let's ignore it because we'll edit it in a different way. Next, you have these VRM humanoid descriptions. We ignore this. This is just will be done automatically. You don't need to ignore this. This we have the animation. Because we use this animation, we wanna disable this. Alternatively, you can also right-click it and click revert. That will delete it, and it will no longer be highlighted. Here, Blenchy proxy, it was automatically done for us. We didn't touch it. We didn't need to touch it, so we can just ignore it. Here, this parameter is the first-person parameter. I don't think it's ever used in any software, but it's there. You can adjust your head position, and you can also adjust where your head is. And here you have renderers. So this, if you are in first person, you can select which of these you want to disable. So you have both third person, first person only, or you can set it to auto. Once again, I don't know of any application that actually uses this VRM first person mode. So this is basically just useless, but in the future there might be an application that uses this, so maybe you can edit it somewhere, or maybe there is some application somewhere and I just don't know about it. VRM look at the head script, keep it default and ignore it. I don't think it's useful anywhere. The default settings are fine, you can ignore this. And this one is the look at bone applier. So here you can adjust the eyes position, how eyes work, and it's complex. You see all these different options. So you just ignore it. Just ignore it. It's fine. Like, if the model was made properly, it's gonna be fine. And if you wanna adjust something, like, I recommend adjusting it via model. But all right. And we went through all the settings. Now we're ready to actually export the model. So we're gonna do exactly that. We're gonna select the model, then we go to VRM0 here, and we go export VRM0. It will open up a menu where we have a lot of different settings. Now, there are certain times when you press the VRM0, export VRM0, and nothing pops up. So what you wanna do is you just wanna click on this and drag it into here. And there you go. You have the same exact thing. Okay, so here we have some buttons. Make typos. You can ignore these unless the program itself says make typos. If it gives you a warning, then press these buttons. If it doesn't give you a warning, ignore them. It won't do anything. Next is the thumbnail. It's the thumbnail for the model. A lot of applications use it, and you can actually take a screenshot. For taking a screenshot, you will need a camera, and we have a camera in the view. And we can see what the camera sees, and the camera sees nothing, so let's bring the camera back into frame. Okay, click here, we click reset. It's gonna bring it back to the center. Let's adjust the camera, bring it back, increase the field of view. As you can see, we can take a pretty picture if you want to. Okay, now we got that ready, so we can just click screenshot. And then we need to select the place where we wanna save these, so let's save it in the butterfly model, and let's call it the butterfly thumbnail. And there we go. This image here updated itself. And here we can edit everything already: information, title, version, contact information will get deleted in VroidHub. That's a new feature. Here you can edit permissions, so we can allow this, allow this, allow this, allow that. Here, license type. You can edit all this in Vroid if you're gonna export it into Vroid, so we'll just leave it at that. Now you have some more buttons over here. So you have mesh. This is basically useless. This is just some basic information. Ignore it. You don't need this. You don't need to look at this. Blend shape. This just only specifies the neutral blend shape, and you can hit apply, though it doesn't. It's already automatically applied for you, so you can also ignore this. Export settings. These two can be marked. You can just leave them as default. They're always marked. They don't hurt anybody. Most of these settings are kind of useless, and they probably won't even work because the format, I mean, it says it supports, but it actually throws up errors, so you probably don't need most of these. The only one that's actually useful here is reduce blend shape. If you export a model and you notice that it's like super extremely big, like 200 megabytes or something, enabling this will most likely reduce that size because it will delete all the blend shapes that are not being used. From this model, these were already deleted, and when we edited blend shapes, you only saw that we had a few. Your models may have more, or they may have less. But usually this button deletes all of them. So this is basically the only useful check mark that you can check. Then you hit export and you type in the model name. So for example, 0 test model, and you can export it. And it will load, and there you go, it's export. Now what we can do is we can go to an application that uses Vroid models. So for example, VroidHub, we're gonna submit a character, we're gonna drag this in, and we're gonna title it test model. So in here we can actually see how it works. And here is our model. As you can see, it mostly looks fine. Let's save privately and let's go into photo mode. Right, so we have this model. Now let's go into photo mode. And let's check out all the different animations. So let's do the greeting animation. As you can see, the scythe is attached, the hand, the hair moves, the tail moves. Actually, it's a bit, this background, it's difficult to see. Okay, let's pick yellow. You can see it moves fine. And we can go to facial expressions, and we can see our custom expressions. So we have remove wings. As you can see, it gets removed immediately. We have remove tail. As you can see, it also works fine. Remove dress. That also works fine. Remove shoes. That works fine. Change hair color. You see the hair color changes. And you can see that's set it up the way we wanted to. I mean, if you want to make edits, you can also make them. See that the head color is a little bit off compared to the body. It's a little bit more orange than the body. So okay, I need to change that as well. But yeah, that's how it's done. Now, once again, a lot of the things that you're gonna edit will depend on what the model itself contains. Alas, you can't edit that in Unity. You will need to use a different application like Blender or Maya. But there's still a lot of things that we can do. So yeah, thanks for watching. And if you want to see how to do this for VRM1 models, you can click this video. There's a few things that are different in VRM1 models. So there's a lot more stuff to go through. So click on this video if you want, and I'll see you next time.